No, I'm not running a farm. I'm actually living in a farm. I'm living in a place called Discipline, which is a farm and a forest and a community. I think it is the largest fruit producing farm right now in Auroville. And it is one of the last settlements before we hit the northwestern village region of Auroville. So like it's on the northwestern corner of Auroville. And yeah, it's quite a place. It is actually, it is on the outer periphery, but yes, I mean we have since it's a forest, it is part of the green belt. I mean like on the northwest green belt area is comprised of 9 palms, miracle forest and discipline forest. And yes, so it is part of the green belt. Well, I'm just glad that we sat together and we spoke, you know, like, and I'm happy for this initiative called Aware and this entire program. Because for something that I really miss in Auroville are platforms where people come together and share their thoughts. Like, we are so many different cultures in Auroville, and each has a different way of understanding an information or, how do you say, relaying an information, the speech, the language, or the formations. You know, like the German speaks different from the French, which speaks differently, not just the language, it is how you give the information. Some people are reticent, some are more in your face, and each has a different way of understanding things. But unless we sit together in a place like Auroville and talk and discuss, we will not get to know each other, which I feel is the underlying an issue in Auroville, that we really don't know most of our fellow Aurovillians. And I'm happy that this initiative has been set, where we are putting people together from, you know, like a spectrum. Okay, today 3 of us out of 4 were Indians, but I'm sure that keeps changing. But like being Indians also, we are not from the same part, you know, like India is a huge land, you know, like the Tamil understands things differently from a Bengali, which is from a Punjabi, so we are like as diverse as Europe. And but yes, I mean it was nice to just sit together and talk about things which need to be talked about. We did not go in much deeper, probably because of the shortage of time, but we did touch upon some salient points, I hope, and which can be expanded upon later by the organizers. Well, as we talked about the food sufficiency, the food dependency that we have on outside needs to be solved, and if we don't do it in Auroville, or if we cannot do it in Auroville, I don't know where else we can, because land is not something that we are short of. You know, and
so where do you think the lack is?
The lack is in cohesion of our farm, like various farm units, you know, like each doing their independent thing, and not enough, how do you say, dedicated or planned approach has been put into the managing of farms or establishing them as in the first place. You know, a basic thing like a soil testing, because the Auroville Plateau has different kind of, it's all red soil, but you know, the nutrient qualities or the quantity, I'm sure differs from in the 4 directions. So if we can do a soil testing and see which area is better suited for what kind of crops, and then go for a planned kind of plantation or planned production of, you know, like produce. So those kind of, but that requires that all the farmers will have to sit on the table together, and they will have to listen to each other and maybe give up some of their autonomy, which is very difficult for a lot of people to do. After having set up and put in so much of investment in their individual farms, not many people are ready to change the ways, or at least easily. But it must be done for a larger good. And now that we know what is working and what is not working, as somebody said, that we have, Pierre said that our farmers are pretty knowledgeable, because this land was not easy to work with. So there's a lot of learning that these people have, which can be shared with wider, you know, like on a wider scale. A lot of information, a lot of technology and knowledge transfer can happen in the bioregional farming communities. And of course, again, food growing is not something that we can do in isolation. We will have to include the bioregion, take their expertise, help, and share in return, you know, like our know-how, so that they can replicate in the villages or in the bioregion, in the smaller models, what we are doing. Well, it is working as far as like coming together for farmers markets is concerned, but as a planned approach to what farm, dedicatedly produce, how much they should keep for themselves, how much, all those things, it's not that it's not working, it is just that they're not working because those structures have not been put into place. As I think I mentioned that most of the farms have been set up by individual, initiatives without much support from what we have, the central fund. So, because, sorry? Correct. I mean, that was the thing because for a long time we were dependent on like this prosperity basket which came from the Sri Aurobindo Society. And rightly so, I mean most of the energy and the money initially went into procuring land in the city area or in the green belt. So there was just too much to do in the initial days and with too little resource and manpower to take care of all the various, aspects of the city. It is not and it's not a criticism, it is just that there was just too many things to take care of. Land was equally important, building and securing those bought lands was as important, like planting trees was equally important, and saving those trees or those saplings not getting eaten up by goats was also important. So there was so much of things that was going on, and there were always maybe 200 or 300 or 400 people who were doing it, most of it. So it was not possible and then it was personal initiative. Somebody said, okay, I'll try to make a farm here. And there was no water, so we had to dig a well. There was no money for that, so they had to scrounge for money from fundraising. So within all that, a lot of priorities got mixed up or got lost. So, and after a certain time, the farms became kind of individual responsibilities, and still the central fund has a lot more on their plate, the funds are not enough to be distributed to many, our teachers don't get, are not well taken care of. It may sound ridiculous in a place like that, but that is the reality of our situation. But we are managing, and it's great that we are managing somehow, but at one point, we'll have to rethink our strategy of fundraising or how to get the funds. Either we generate it or we get involvement of more governments to help us, this experiment survive. Because in the end, it is an experiment which, if it works, will be beneficial to every nation or, this model. But right now, I find the dependence on at least the governmental support is just too much on just one government, which is the Indian government, which is probably why the present change in which the government is trying to put in some structures in place, it is just because that they were the only people we went asking for help. If we have more governments involved, maybe the dependence on the Indian government or the pressure on the Indian government to handle this project will also lessen. It will be a win-win situation for everybody. So, and I hope we do understand that this is not something that we can do all by ourselves. Our farms will need substantial amount of investment, and that cannot happen in bits and pieces by individual fundraising. It has to be a planned thing. Okay, there'll have to be machineries, there'll have to be infrastructure things, there'll have to be a lot of equipment, and the way the times are changing so fast, we cannot wait for bits and pieces or drops of funds to come in, and it will never happen like that. Correct. Those are like just drops in the ocean. Well, I'm sure everybody is doing their most sincere best in some way or the other, or at least they are feeling that they're doing it as sincere as possible. And well, you can never judge how sincere a person is or whether a person is sincere or not. Only that person knows for sure within themselves if they are sincere. And we should not be questioning anybody's sincerity, because it's just not done. But yes, I think it has been a very sincere, at least effort on the parts of the organizers to do this, because these are the conversations that need to be we ought to have it, and these are the platforms that need to be set up where such conversations can take place. And so in that way, I think it is a very sincere effort on part of the organizing team, and I hope it just builds up from here.